Let me tell you about a company called Astra Motors. From the outside, you'd think they were crushing it. But behind the scenes, the place was a total mess, just burning itself out. We're going to dig into their story, how they went from complete chaos to incredible precision, all because of one simple idea. I love this line. Chaos wore a tie. It just perfectly sums up what was happening at Astra. On the surface, everything looked professional, all business as usual. But internally, it was just a frantic scramble. It gives you this image of a company just running on fumes, spinning its wheels, but not actually going anywhere. So let's rewind a bit. Before this huge transformation, Astra Motors was basically running on guesswork. Seriously. It was all about gut feelings and just trying to work harder. But as we're about to see, that's a really dangerous combination for any business that wants to actually succeed. And here's where you can really see the problem. To the outside world, everything looked great. Machines were humming, trucks were leaving the lot, managers looked busy in their meetings. But the reality on the inside was a nightmare of defects, constantly missed deadlines, and targets that were just, well, they were suggestions at that point. They were always busy, sure, but they weren't getting anything done right. And you've probably seen this before, right? Every single time something went wrong, the so-called fixes were always the same old tired excuses. Oh, we'll get to it next month. Everybody just needs to work harder. Or my personal favorite, let's just add another person to check things. They were just slapping Band-Aids on huge problems, and so, of course, nothing ever actually changed. They were completely stuck. Okay, so things are looking pretty bleak, but every great story has a turning point. And for Astra, that moment was a huge wake-up call. It was a cold, hard truth that finally forced them to stop making excuses and actually look at the evidence. Oof. This wasn't just some casual feedback. This came from their biggest, most important client. And listen to that keyword, unpredictable. It's not that everything Astra made was bad. The problem was the client never knew what they were going to get. Would it be great? Would it be garbage? That inconsistency, that unreliability, that was the final straw. This was the exact moment they knew everything had to change. And then, the CEO asks this one simple question that changes the entire game. What if the problem isn't the people? What if it's the process? Right there, the entire focus shifted. They stopped blaming tired, overworked employees and started looking suspiciously at the system they were all forced to use day in and day out. So what's the plan? They turned to this, Six Sigma. Now, don't get hung up on the name. At its heart, it's basically a detective method for business. You use data, hard facts, to hunt down the real reasons you're having problems so you can fix them for good, not just for a week. And just like that, the investigation was on. A small team got pulled together with one very clear instruction. Do not fix anything. Not yet. Your only job is to follow the data. They started with the first 3 steps of the method: define, measure, and analyze. Now, think about how hard that is. The impulse, when things are on fire, is to grab a fire extinguisher and start spraying. But this team showed incredible discipline. They just listened. They dove deep into customer complaint files, shipping records, everything, to define what the actual problem was, not just the problem everyone thought they had. And there it is. After all that digging, one number just screamed out at them: 15%. A full 15% of all the engines they built were failing the final inspection. Suddenly, it wasn't some vague quality problem anymore. It was a number. It was an enemy they could actually see and attack. So they started measuring things, and boom, they find their first huge clue. The data couldn't have been clearer. These defects weren't happening randomly. There was a massive spike in problems happening during the night shift. This was huge. It proved the problem wasn't everywhere all the time. It had a specific time and a specific place. And when they finally analyzed all that data, the truth came out. You know what the problem was? It wasn't lazy people on the night shift. It was variation. One critical machine was slowly drifting out of calibration. The training for the day shift was different than the training for the night shift, and some basic tools like torque wrenches were just old and worn out. It was never about effort. It was about consistency. All right, so now they know the real villain. It's time to actually fix things, to move into the improve phase. And the secret here wasn't some giant, expensive, disruptive overhaul. Nope. It was a series of small, super precise fixes that were aimed directly at those root causes they found. And look at how smart these fixes were. They didn't just tell people to be more careful, they created one single, standardized training program for everybody. They scheduled maintenance to happen before a machine could drift out of spec. They even put smart sensors on tools to alert people. They made the right way to do things the easy way to do things. They fixed the system for the people. And the results? They were just, wow, immediate and absolutely staggering. That defect rate cratered, dropping from that disastrous 15% all the way down to just over 2%. And nobody was working any harder. The process was just finally working smarter. And you know what that means, right? That translates directly to the bottom line. I mean, think about it. A 60% reduction in all the time, money, and materials they were wasting on fixing mistakes, that is a massive, massive win. It proves that focusing on quality isn't an expense, it is one of the best investments you can make. But here's the thing. It's one thing to get a fantastic result. It's another thing entirely to keep it. And that brings us to the last and maybe the most important step, control. How do you make sure all this hard work sticks? How do you keep the chaos from slowly creeping back in? Well, they didn't just cross their fingers and hope for the best. They built a system, a firewall against chaos. They put up charts so everyone could literally see if a process was stable. They created dashboards so the data was transparent to the whole team. They set up audits and this is so important, they gave ownership of the process to the operators on the floor. And this brings us to a really powerful, kind of counterintuitive idea. In a factory, exciting is a bad word. Exciting means something's on fire and you have to go put it out. You know what you want? You want boring. Boring means it's predictable, it's consistent, it's reliable. And that's exactly what they got. So when you step back and look at the whole story, you realize this wasn't just about fixing a few machines. This completely transformed the company's culture. They went from a place of blame, constant firefighting, and loud opinions to a culture of data, prevention, and actual evidence. Decisions stopped being about who had the most power and started being about what the facts actually said. And that's really the big lesson here, isn't it? We all love these stories about the hero who swoops in at the last second to save the day. But a truly great, sustainable business, it doesn't need heroes. It runs on a reliable system that just works day in and day out. Because in the end, reliability will be heroics every single time.